For those people who aren't totally familiar with your work, can you give sort of like a high-level overview of what you've been able to do with your protocol and your research?
Right. So we've been interested for 30 years now in what is it that actually drives Alzheimer's disease. You know, we were told that Alzheimer's disease is mysterious, you can't prevent it, you can't delay it, and you can't reverse it. Well, the problem is that people have not looked at large enough data sets. So we're looking at all of the reasons, and this fits beautifully what we've been doing in the test tubes for 30 years, studying Alzheimer's and Alzheimer's, our fruit fly model, all these other models. I have to say, I didn't think I would ever get back to seeing a human being again. But studying these things, what we found is that you can actually look, if you take the right series of genetic and biochemical tests, you can see why you are having cognitive decline that we call Alzheimer's disease. Immediately, what you can see is Alzheimer's is not one disease. You can see very clear subtypes. So we developed an algorithm where you can now say this person has 70% type 1, 20% type 1.5, and 10% type 2, for example, or type 3, 4, 5, etc. So we can see very clear subtypes, and then you can see what to do about it. And so we started this back in 2011. We actually proposed the first comprehensive trial for early Alzheimer's, which was going to be done in Australia. And we were turned down. They said, look, you obviously don't understand how to do clinical trials because you're asking to change more than one variable. We said to the IRB, well, you obviously don't understand Alzheimer's disease because it's not a one variable disease. So we are all doing things, and they fit very much within the functional medicine realm, that contribute. And we identified initially 36 different things that all contribute to the molecular pathways that lead to what we ultimately, the pathologists really call it Alzheimer's disease. But it is cognitive decline associated with a specific pathology. So we told people, look, imagine you have 36 holes in your roof. You take a drug, it covers one hole. It covers it really well, but it's only one hole. You got 35 left. You're going to have a problem. So we started telling people, look, you need to do all the holes. And when they do that, we saw unprecedented improvements, reversals in cognitive decline. We published the first 19. We have several hundred people now who are on this with unprecedented improvements, and we get these. We've had over 5,000 emails. We hear from people every week who are getting better. And what we found is that what we're doing fits in beautifully with what functional medicine is all about. So we found out what we're doing fits in beautifully with what Jeffrey and Mark and David and Sarah and all the various people who've been working all these years in functional medicine have the right approach that fits beautifully with what we've seen in the test tube over the last year.
I want to just go into that for a moment because you've got the functional medicine community here. You've got doctors like Mark Mendelacino. You've got Rongan, I know, has been out to train with you and to understand what's really going on. What is it about a functional medicine doctor that makes them uniquely equipped to deliver this kind of care?
Yeah, and you mentioned Mark Mendelacino is a very good example. So Mark, when he's looking at what is actually causing it, he's not saying the way, if you go to an Alzheimer's clinic, what they will tell you is, you have Alzheimer's, we don't know what causes it, and it's not going to get better. We're going to give you a drug, Aricept or Namenda, which is going to make a very, very small difference, but doesn't change the trajectory. You may get a bump up, you'll continue down. When Mark sees someone, when functional physicians see someone who have cognitive decline, they do appropriate tests that are actually focused on the biochemistry of what's driving it. So instead of saying you have Alzheimer's disease, 21st century medicine is saying you have type 1.5 MCI, for example, due to specific genetics, maybe due to your HLA-DRDQ interacting with a specific mycotoxin exposure. You can see all the players, so you can actually get at the root cause. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Why would you try to trick nature and go downstream with a drug? We know it doesn't work. Monotherapies for complex chronic illnesses do not work. So one of the things we're really interested in is essentially bridging what we call the complexity gap. Think about it for a minute. I don't know if anyone came here in a driverless car or flew here in an airplane, the computer flies the airplane, drives the car. Any sort of task, your iPhone, any of these things do, you have to match the complexity of the computer program with the complexity of the task. It's only in medicine where we have these unbelievably complex systems. Humans are incredibly complex. The genome, 3.3 billion base pairs, is just the tip of the iceberg. That's the simplest part. The lipidome, the proteome, the metabolome, on and on and on. So you have this incredibly complex organism. And what sort of a data set do we gather? Sodium, potassium, a couple of things. So there's this huge complexity gap which doesn't exist anyplace else. If you tried to fly a plane and you had that little information, you'd crash every time. So the goal here is to develop better and better algorithms so that we can say, look, here's why you got this problem, be it type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, congestive heart failure, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Lewy body, what have you, and we're just starting to go from Alzheimer's to some of these others. And then you can get at what the actual causes are. And it just happens, it fits beautifully with what the pioneers like Jeffrey and Mark and others have put together over the last 25 years.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I guess, the last question that I want to ask, this show is called The Evolution of Neurology.
Yeah.
So in your mind, what is the evolution of neurology?
Right. So to me, this is a really exciting time. And it's hard to realize that when you're in the middle of it. I don't know how many people here went into neurology, but the fact of the matter is, you remember making fun of the people who are interested in neurology when we were in medical school. Why? Because we're really good at diagnostics and we're really lousy at therapeutics. So as they say, the national flower of the neurologist is the hedge. So, this is, right, And so neurologists are known for pontificating, but not helping anybody. This has been the problem. This is why I went into the laboratory for all those years. But for the first time, we can actually make a difference. And so this is the era. I mean, again, it's so hard to see when you're in the middle of history. We are in, literally, neurologically speaking, we are in the fourth inning of a perfect game. So all of us are part of history. It's the part of history of functional medicine. This is a real revolution. When have we ever been able to reverse cognitive decline in Alzheimer's before? When have we ever been able to do that? Lou Gehrig's is next, and on and on and on. So, yeah. So this is a we are all in the middle of a historical event that is going to be taking place over the last few years and the next couple of decades. And we will all emerge from that, where Alzheimer's will be and it should be, a very, very rare disease.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Dale Bredesen.